podcast. My name is Caleb. I'm joined by Doctors Adam Francisco and Scott Keith. Last episode, we got to say Merry Christmas. The episode came out on Christmas Eve, which is always an interesting time to record because I want to do something themed towards Christmas. And this is also a hard time of the year for us to start like a new series or something, because if you do, it's probably going to be so off base from the holiday that is going on. And then the immediate week after, right now, this is, I believe, if I looked at my calendar correctly, the episode is coming out on New Year's Eve, this next episode. So we, we're sort of in this pickle where I don't want to start anything new, but I do want people to know that we are going to start doing some new episodes, some new series in 2020. We did a really topical format this year with some series intermixed, and maybe we'll just do a recap on some of the stuff we did in 2020, just so people know, if you're a new listener, things that you can go back to. I mean, things we did in 2019. I'm sorry. So we did pretty notably the history of Christianity in America with Dan Van Voris, which was a 6 episode series that you can go back and listen to. I thought it was pretty great. I think it's going to develop into a broader academy later. I think it's on the docket if I looked at that outline correctly as well, just because it was a great jumping off point, but we had a lot of people saying, can you do this more? Because this is a sort of a prevalent issue today, is like, how do we have what is the history of the development of the various groups and divisions within American Christianity that we have today? And sort of, especially, there are lots of questions right now about the philosophy behind American evangelicalism and things like that. And I think that series helped answer a lot of questions for people, and especially since we usually mostly focus on the history of the Reformation and things like that. We did a lead up to Here We Still Stand again this year, which was on the Apostles' Creed. So we did a lot of creedal episodes. We did episodes about confessing the creed. We talked about the first article, second article, and third article of the creed in various other episodes. I think we talked about Lutheran systematic theology and confessional theology and its relation to the creeds, specifically the Augsburg Confession and the Small Catechism as well, which was great. And then we did a lot of topical episodes this year. I looked for gaps where we hadn't filled things out, and we went back and revisited topics where we had left gaps in the past several years when we had done 20, 15-part series on history or systematics or something like that. 2020, we're going to start off with some more thematic episodes where they're sort of in line with each other. And then we'll, as the year progresses, go back into addressing topics which people have either asked important questions about or are just missing from our catalog that we notice. So that's sort of a heads up for what's coming in 2020. But for today's episode, I wanted to talk about the idea of New Year's resolutions. This is something, I don't know, I wrote a blog about 3 or 4 years ago. I don't even remember what the conclusions of my blog were. I remember my grandma being upset about that blog that I wrote.
Which one?
It was on the Jagged Word.
Which grandma?
Nanny was upset about it. I remember her calling me after I wrote it because it was so negative about something.
Scott just came alive.
Yeah.
He's like looking down.
I mean,
at his
that's the
computer,
most notable thing I remember about that blog is I wrote something negative about the idea of New Year's resolutions, and I got a phone call from my grandma.
That must be the day your grandmother first started believing you could do things wrong.
Probably, right? And so I don't know. I thought it'd be interesting to ask this question. Hey, what do you guys, just in general, what do you guys think about New Year's resolutions? Do you have any? And then we'll do some other things at the end of this episode. There's a tradition in the Old Thinking Fellows that I'd like to bring back, which is to simply ask you, what are you guys reading? And stuff like that.
Oh, Lord.
But we'll do that at the end of the episode. Apparently, you're not reading anything.
Me?
No.
Oh, I got 3 in the fire right now.
Oh, that's great. And so let's just start it off. What do you guys think about New Year's resolutions? Just like as a practice or as a, I don't know, even as a...
I wish I could own a gym for about a month's time.
Yeah,
because I started on January 1st. Because if you're a member of a gym it's just a huge influx of people, and it's a pain because you can't get to the the weights and things, but you just wait 4 weeks and then it thins out again. I think I make a lot of money doing that. There is nothing
For
wrong
4
with
weeks.
there's nothing wrong with a New Year's resolution. But at the same time, if you take it too seriously, maybe there is.
New year.
If
new
your whole
you,
life is just altered because you failed to meet your goal of whatever it is, losing weight, gaining muscle, not cussing as much, drinking less.
Being just a little more awesome next year than I have been this year.
Yeah.
I guess there seems to me just like there's a couple good things and a couple bad things about it. The good things are I don't think there's anything wrong with goals of self-improvement, especially about very specific things. Like it would be better if I was more diligent about helping my wife with certain things around the house.
Amen.
Okay.
Amen to that. I don't know anything about it, but sounds good.
If I know that, should I wait till 2020 to start
No.
doing that?
Do it now.
Yeah, that's right. And so I think that's part of it too. There seems to be like especially when it comes to like the personal fitness and health goals and stuff like that is like,
Yeah.
I'm going to start on that day.
Yeah.
Well, if you know there's something wrong about the way you're living,
Yeah.
this seems like a method of procrastination.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is there's a cycle every year with this that you already pointed out, which is of immense optimism followed by immense failure that either causes sort of like, I think, hopelessness towards certain problems for people, or we just don't talk about that we all failed like week 2 of our resolutions. And that might be an area that's actually open for exploration here is like this optimism of I can do it to like what is really culturally mass failure every year. Like you said, the gym thins out again after week 4, right?
I just don't get why. I mean, if you want to do it, do it. I don't really care, but at the same time, I just don't get why it's such a thing.
I was going to ask, have you ever made one?
Not to my recollection.
Yeah, I don't know if I have either.
Yeah, I don't understand it so much as
Maybe it's
and I
because we're
guess-
so awesome already.
Yeah, that could be it.
I mean,
I think to me, I guess I don't want to say everybody that makes a New Year's resolution is a pagan because I know they're not, but I guess maybe if the new year is really like a new earth to you because it's some sort of calendar, and this is like a brand new, January 1 is a brand new beginning to everything for you. I guess a resolution is an okay thing because it's a brand new beginning, but January 1 never really feels like a brand new beginning to me. It feels like another morning that I woke up and sort of just
made coffee,
started doing the things I normally do, which is sort of, I would say, our doctrine of vocation and sort of how I live my life. I'm not day to day looking for the new ways that I can be a better me or serve Jesus better or whatever. I just sort of try to recognize the things that God has called me to do in my life and get up and do them.
the work. Yeah.
Get to work.
I think, I guess another thing I like about them is that it does seem to be a time, especially now, it makes the end of the year, which may be good, maybe bad, but at least people are reflecting on their wrongs, I guess is part of this. So whether it's their wrongs against themselves or family or stuff, because the resolutions, there are those cliche ones, like I'm going to get fit this year, or I'm going to lose 20 pounds, or I'm going to stop eating chocolate, or, whatever it is. But at some level, it is a reflection on the way you live your life, which is something that Christians are not, we are not inherently opposed to, right? Like this reflection and confession of the things that I fail to do.
I also, by the way, don't give things up for Lent.
Me either. Yeah. Mm-mm. Well, that's probably cultural then, right? Do you, Adam? He got quiet all of a sudden.
I don't.
I mean,
What's Lent? I'm just kidding.
well, it's kind of the same thing. I guess if I feel like I have things that are worthy of giving up for Lent, I should just sort of give them up.
Yep.
Like, what's with the time of year? Like, why?
Yeah.
If I need to stop smoking, why stop smoking for Lent? Just stop smoking. If I'm drinking too much, why stop drinking for Lent? Just it's time to stop drinking.
As you sit there with a beer in your hand.
I didn't say I actually needed to stop drinking. I said if I need to stop drinking.
Do you think there is a way that we could capitalize on this, like, sort of like mass cultural reflection on our failure?
I think there's always a way you can say what you're recognizing in yourself is what we call sin, right? That you are not, despite what the world's telling you, you're not perfect. You're not all you think you're cracked up to be, and at certain times of year you recognize that. And I guess I'll quote Jordan Peterson again because I actually kind of like the line: "If things are bad, they're worse than you think." It's sort of an opportunity to go deep into how deep this problem actually goes in us. Because our biggest problem isn't that we need to eat healthier or lose weight or exercise more or save more money or learn a new skill or quit smoking or read more and become better educated or find another job that's more fulfilling or drink less alcohol or spend more time with family, which, by the way, are Inc.'s top 10 New Year's resolutions. Our big problem is that we are completely sinful. We're born into this world sinful and unclean. And as the confession that we all say at our churches goes, that we fail to do the things we ought to do, and we do the things we ought not do. We sin against His word. We sin against His will, day in and day out. And we want to ask with Paul, who can save us from this body of death. And there's one answer to that. Thanks be to God and Jesus Christ our Lord. So could it serve as an in? Sure, it could. Does it for most Christians to non-Christians? Probably not.
No, I think going out on a limb, Christians partake in these things probably just as frequently. I don't even actually want to say, well, evangelicals do this and Lutherans don't, or whoever, right? We get.
Do you want me to say what Calvinists do? Because I know they love that.
Yeah, they love that too. Calvinists love New Year's resolutions. No,
just kidding, Calvinist friends.
But I think, like you said, there is sort of it seems like there's an underlying paganism to some of this, but that doesn't really stop Christians on the whole from getting caught up in these things, right? I see. In fact, the people I've heard New Year's resolutions from the most are Christians, because that's just who my friends and family are, too. So this isn't like a phenomenon that we're, I don't know, immune to or something like that.
I don't know if I'd describe it as pagan. It seems a little too critical.
Okay.
I think it's more just people
secular
want progress. People like seeing progress in some sense of the term, don't they? I mean,
yeah,
we're kind of wired for it. But maybe there is a theological side to this. We think that we can do better, and we can do better, like in a horizontal sense.
Yeah, I can eat less fat.
Yeah,
right.
But maybe it's like this, the natural opinion of the law, where we think we can do better before God.
Yeah, we can crack this nut.
It's at least an analog.
Yeah. Line up the resolutions, God. I got this.
Well,
here, Jesus, hold my beer.
And like you said, it probably is at least an analog, and at most for some people, it probably does dip into the spiritual, that it has to do with becoming a better person, and that better person aims is actually part of your religious scheme. Yeah. And that is decidedly not the confession of the Christian faith.
Right. But, I think it would be nice, at the very least, if people were better people, in just a civil sense of the term. So I think you got to be a little careful, right?
Oh yeah.
So what do we mean by a better person? Faster, stronger, leaner, or are we better person who pleases God more because they don't drink as much beer as Dr. Keith does, and things like that? So you got to be a little careful, because if all analogies break down, right? Mm-hmm. And analogies only go so far. I mean, that's redundant right there, but.
And I guess that's all we can do, right, is actually sort of I think not be silent, number one, and just sort of teach on this issue, because you can't understand how the mass world out there, or even the person who's got a New Year's resolution, is interpreting it, right? Mm-hmm. Like whether or not this is sort of dipping into their soteriology or not, or if this really is just about losing weight, right? Like you could sort of look at it at service value and say, yeah, losing weight's a good thing. It's a goal you should strive at. But at what point does it become part of your religious ceremony? So all you can do is really continue to proclaim Christ even in the midst of this sort of changing scheme towards, this rotation of striving to and failing, or striving to and succeeding even. Because that might be the more dangerous thing, right? Is like setting up a bunch of resolutions that you actually knock out of the park.
Oh, yeah. And then also you have an inflated sense of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would bet that's kind of rare. I mean, I don't know. Even on a secular side, I've always had a hard time with things like this because it's like they're so cliche.
yeah. Trendy.
Anything that's that cliche usually is for a reason.
If it's not a
we used to know the owners of the gym that were by the store we owned in Carson City, and they would budget their whole year on January through like February 1.
Because having lived in Big Bear, I'm actually not surprised by that.
That's where they'd get, because a gym makes its way in the world based on, it's kind of like insurance, based on the number of people that buy the membership
And don't show up.
and never use it. Well, if you can sort of withstand the first 6 weeks of the new year with all the new member signups you get, you're from that point on just making money because you're collecting the money every month, knowing that 90% of the people that signed up won't do it. And I do think it's a flawed view of who we are for sure. But I do like what Adam's saying that, it's civilly, the desire. This is sort of the discussion goes back to the show we did where we talked about Jordan Peterson, right? Is that civilly, I want people, especially civilly, I want people to try to do better, right? I want people to try to be better parents, to be better children, better I've got students and children, right? I want them to be better children. I want them to be better students. I am a parent. I want to be a better parent. I want other people to. I want people to be better members of their church congregations, be nicer to the people that come to do the same thing and hear the same words that they do on Sunday. I want all of these things. But I think for most of the world, the connection between I want to do these things because they help me, right? Or they make me healthier or whatever. Between that and I'm now a better person is a 1-to-1. And it almost always is. And you just, it depends on your definition of you're a better person, right? If you're a better person because you're doing better civilly with other people, okay, maybe. But if that means that you're a better person sort of before a God whose standard is holiness and perfection,
or even before nature in the case of just society in a lot of ways, right? Is it like, I think that becomes a litmus test a lot of the time because we don't share sort of this universal language towards God anymore. In the United States especially, it's so you have such a diverse view of beliefs that, but you are, when somebody says I'm a good person, they're judging that against
someone,
some sort of standard that we all buy into a little bit when we indulge those
we're
conversations.
usually judging it against the next worst person that we know besides us.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it might just even be a thing of definitions, right? Like if you succeed at the diet, you're probably a skinnier person. You might be a healthier person. Like there's probably a slew of positive adjectives that actually describe the change that you made, but like ontologically better.
Sure. It's a relative betterness. Mm-hmm. I sound like a philosopher there. Good heavens.
Yeah. He used ontological and you used relative.
Bam.
Where's this show going?
Somebody's got to use the word epistemology here soon.
I'm on it. Hold on. If your epistemology is such that, okay.
Oh, great.
We've covered all the bases.
So for you guys, you might not have resolutions, but do you have things that you want to do in 2020 that you didn't do in 2019?
I do. I have 2 books about our friend Philip Melanchthon that have been just, within 5% of being done for 2 years now. That
you're going to do. You're going to finish, put the capstone
on. Just that
on.
last 5% just feels like so much to me.
What do you have to do for these last 2 books?
I kind of just have to read them over 1 or 2 more times and fix the little things that I find wrong.
So there's no
his life and theology, or just a biography, or
yeah, it's a little biographical, but dealing with his view and use of Scripture, and then his organizing of theology.
Cool. All right. Adam, anything you want to do in 2020 that you didn't do in 2019?
Yeah, I want to replace my roof.
Are you
But
going to do it, or are you going to
Yeah, so I was supposed to do it last summer, and
Are we talking home improvement projects? I got a list of those.
well,
too.
so that was kind of a joke.
That's a really big
I do
project.
have it's been a long time. I've been planning this book tentatively titled "The Challenge of Islam," and I made some pretty good strides on it early on. Then I came down with Bell's palsy, and it affected the way I could see things, and for a while, and then my brother died, and it's just been on the back burner for a long time. So now I'm kind of in the clear. So hopefully we'll release it. Hopefully it'll be finished, to be sure, but we'll release it September 11th, 2021, 20 years after. Bam.
Is there a specific
How's that
reason?
for some marketing?
That's the reason.
And I do want to blog for 1517. For the longest time,
So-
I have been,
I noticed
I just
this, right?
can't blog, but now I can.
I have been working to try to
I will.
to like review sections of the website, not like for removal, but actually for curating them towards like better navigation of content on the 1517 website. That's been part of what I've been doing lately. And I went to go search for apologetics, and I typed in Adam's name, and nothing came up. And I'm like, oh, the website's acting wonky.
Like I said years
You didn't
ago
write
at a
anything.
1517 meeting in the early days,
You didn't
I said,
write anything.
I don't blog, I write books.
He did too. He was really
remember that?
erudite about it too. He's like, I'm an academic. I don't
So-
blog.
Yeah, it's
We don't blog. That's not what we do.
Yeah. So
There's something. I mean, I'll acknowledge that when you're trained to write long form and to really back
the last word kind of thing.
to back up every assertion that you make or argument that you make to,
Well, yeah.
to thoroughly back it up. Moving over to 1,000 words or less and doing, because in a blog, you have to make an assertion that you might not have time to thoroughly cite.
Mm-hmm.
And that's difficult for somebody trained.
And on the vice versa,
Academic
as somebody who's been writing blogs for a long time, it's actually sometimes damaging to my ability to
Write a
expand
dissertation or
further.
something, yeah.
Because I'm like, I got this, 1,200 words. You want like, and that's just one of the. So like for my MA thesis, I've been tricking myself, which sounds stupid, but I mean it's been helpful. Is I've essentially said, hey, I'm going to write a blog, quote unquote, about this very narrow thing. And then just do that 15 times. And then go in and write the transitions, and that'll be.
Yeah.
I'd say the difference is as a blog author, you're always the expert.
Yeah, you're the thought leader.
Yeah, when you're writing as an academic, you're almost always referring
To somebody else.
Yeah.
the other person, especially before you make an assertion, because you're making a case.
That's good. Well, I have some things I'm going to do in 2020.
You're gonna finish that master's thesis.
I'm going to finish that master's thesis, which is 50% of the way done, which is good. I'm actually hoping to finish the draft in the next 4 weeks, which will then be given over to my supervisor, who will hopefully, offer some corrections and some suggestions. I'll edit it and.
Is it a New Year's resolution for you to finish your master's thesis within 4 years of the new year, 4 weeks of the new year?
No, it's not. It's just it's actually something I wish I had done a couple weeks ago.
Oh, so it kind of is a resolution.
Yeah, a little bit, but gonna do that, and then I'm hoping to put together a bit of a plan for Thinking Fellows for the year. We've actually historically, us three have sat down and done that every year, put together like a plan for the beginning of the year. So I'm hoping to get that done and do that. And then the other big part is some new podcasting and writing stuff. Like you guys, there's some outlines of books / book chapter material that I hope to actually get down on paper.
Yeah.
And reading. That's the other thing is like school is great because you have to read, and especially those like really formative years. I would say like those middle 2 years of undergrad, like you have an opportunity just in your assigned reading to really expand your base knowledge of something. And then in the MA, it's been a little more specific, right, towards whatever. I've had less classes than I did in undergrad, right, and it's more advanced writing, and some of it's boring. As all, I mean, let's just be honest, it's just boring to read. In 2020, I should be done with my MA, so I'm hoping to actually just free up some of the reading to things I want to read for the year, which is
That's a great place to be when you can just read broadly. Didn't you read a book called The Nordic Way a couple of years ago, Scott?
Yeah.
I mean, books on how to stack your lumber or whatever.
That was
the
a
heck it
different one.
was,
I read both those.
Or
I found out
I read a book on the stock market. I didn't understand it, but I read it.
I actually found out we missed an opportunity with Jonathan Mummy on the show because he texted me and said one of his hobbies is splitting and stacking wood. Which I was
Really?
like, well, that's the big bear life right there.
That's funny.
You got to gather that wood or else you're cold in the middle of the
right.
winter. And there's something about that for sure. Okay, so I said at the beginning of the episode, I wanted to go back to an old Thinking Fellows thing. It's kind of nice having like 4 years worth of episodes now because I can be like, well, back in the good old days of Thinking Fellows, we used to talk about what books we were reading. And I'd like to do that again today. So, because I know you guys, like you said, you are both in a position where you read sort of broadly, where like I'm going to ask this question and people are going to probably be surprised to find out, or maybe not surprised if they pay close attention to the show. There's probably not going to be a lot of theological stuff on there, is there?
Good heavens, no.
Yeah. And so, and that's actually one of the hard questions too. Because people ask me for theological podcast recommendations
Oh, yeah.
regularly. And I almost can, and this is, I don't want to just be a 15, 17 shill. I do want to be to some extent. But I almost always just end up offering other podcasts we have because in all honesty, the podcasts I'm interested in listening to are about fountain pens, cars.
You still listening to that Pen Addict?
I do listen to Pen Addict. Okay. Oh, they're about cars, Apple products. I listen to political podcasts. Theology is my job. Well, that sounds weird to say. I don't know if that's right or not. But I do theology for work. So when I take a break and I listen to a podcast, not for work, it tends not to be on that subject to which my mind has to be dedicated most hours of the week, right? So that's not because I don't like theological content. It's because that's what I have to do. And when the have to sort of frees up, I go listen to other things, right?
My thing with reading theology is, so for me to read something where I feel like I'm going to learn, and this is going to sound really haughty for just a second, where I feel like I'm going to learn something I don't know to some degree already, it has to be a very specific piece of academic literature. And so I do read a decent amount of that, probably not as much as I would if I were like writing in that arena or trying to get tenure at a tenure track institution or something. But I do read a fair amount of it. I subscribe to a service that emails me sort of papers that have just come out, and when one grabs my eye, I read that. But that's kind of where I am with that now. So I get a lot of that very specific, and I mean very specific, sort of theological content regarding stuff I don't already know from academic papers. When it gets to sort of book level, 9 times out of 10, it's not that those don't exist; they do. A lot of times they're in subjects that I'm not interested enough to spend, 3 weeks consuming this book on. And so, I don't know. I think there's a difference being in the position that I'm in now. I mean, we write at 1517 a lot of popular level stuff. So I will cruise through some popular level stuff in a way just to see what other people are doing as opposed to what we're doing and that kind of thing. But it's almost not even worth in some of that stuff saying this is what you're reading now because you can cruise through it in, 3 or 4 hours.
Well, it's not making you pause and reconsider something.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not necessarily a bad thing with some of those books. Like I would say that about the edited volumes I've been a part of in writing stuff, like the Credo book that we gave away at Here We Still Stand. I like that little book. I like the chapters that the other people wrote in that book. I don't think it's not like something that should that is earth shattering.
No,
Like if you read it, right? Like
it's
if
not
if
designed
either of
for that.
you read it, you wouldn't be like, I had never thought about the Holy Spirit like that before, right? And so, and I know that there are people, and it's not an insult that there are people out there for whom these doctrines or the expression of certain doctrines will be new, and in fact will be world shattering in a very positive way.
Right.
That's a great thing. It's just that at some point, you've heard, the articulation of the forgiveness of sins this way so many times, where it's great to see it again, and it's great to know that that's what.
And it's great even to hear somebody say it differently than you would say it in a way.
But it's not like learning it for the first time.
Better communication and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's all good. I will spend some time going through the new Dave Anderson book. I forgot the title already.
Faithless to Fearless.
Faithless to Fearless.
The event that changed the world.
Yeah,
the minimal facts case for the resurrection.
That looks pretty good.
Good 250 some odd pages of pretty intense
apologetic work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually just grabbed a copy from upstairs too of the pile that you and Steve brought over, and
those are kind of like those are inspection copies. There's a possessive apostrophe missing on the third page.
Okay.
So when you read that, just know it's been added in.
So to get back to my original question, what are you guys actually reading now that we've prefaced that it's not going to be?
I saw one today that I actually caught, and I never catch these. I was picking up some auto parts for my wife's truck to do an oil change on it, and the dealer down off San Juan Capistrano, they put out 2 calendars every year. They've got like a new car calendar and a classic car calendar, and on both of them, they're trying to say that they're off the San Diego freeway.
Oh no!
And Diego in the classic car calendar was spelled with missing. It was like San Diogo.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Drives me nuts.
And I thought, oh gosh, this would really make Adam crazy. I almost got one just to give you.
So, books I'm reading. I'm going to just jump right into it. Every couple of years or so, I read Paul Johnson's History of the American People.
Okay.
It's like a 950-page glorious narrative on America. Another book, I highly recommend him. He's an agnostic Jew, a polymath, meaning he has expert knowledge in all sorts of fields, from music and poetry to mathematics and etc. Member of the Discovery Institute, David Berlinski. He wrote several years ago. I read a book entitled "The Devil's Delusion." Subtitle was "The Scientific Pretensions of the New Atheism," and the arguments were pretty normal arguments against the New Atheist movement, but it's his way of writing that turned me on to his work. And his latest book just came out. Is called Human Nature. And I thought, this is going to be promising. It's a very odd book. If you can't read French, German, English, or calculus, probably not your book. But there's some gems in that book. And then Rand Paul, the senator. Is he senator? He's a senator, right? Yeah, Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky.
Rand is senator.
Has a book called "The Case Against Socialism." I thought I read that a couple weeks ago, just since socialism seems to be such a hot thing.
Is he the one that is a libertarian playing as a Republican, or a Republican playing as a libertarian? Because his dad's one. His dad's the libertarian.
Yeah, but his dad was a member of the Republican Party, and
right. That's what I mean. One of them is libertarian playing as a Republican. One's a Republican playing as libertarian. I always forget which one's which.
Boy, I don't know. I mean, he's an originalist in terms of his view of the Constitution. He's a non-interventionist in terms of foreign policy. He's a free marketeer, if that's a phrase or word.
Both senior and the younger are like descriptively more libertarian. Within the Republican Party, right? That's the right way to say it.
But one of them was like
his dad, Ron
legit
Paul, is
Republican
much
for all
more,
time, and one was libertarian who came over to the Republican Party.
That was Ron Paul.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, the older Ron Paul was a libertarian, right? And then came over to the party. Is the way I believe I know it.
I once stayed in a house that Ron Paul once owned.
Ooh.
Overlooking the Gulf of Mexico.
Dang.
Interesting. How about you? What are you
My
reading,
work
Dad?
here is done.
Yeah. So, do you want the theological one that I'm actually reading?
I'll have lots of theological ones. So when you guys get
Well,
around to
I'm
me-
reading John Calvin's called "The Bondage and Liberation of the Will." Sort of his doctrine of the will and predestination. As far as I understand, I think it's one of the only sort of translated works on that topic that's not directly from the institutes.
Interesting.
So now, to be honest,
And something you hadn't read before of Calvin.
hadn't read before. It just came out not too long ago. I am reading it with a student, so
Oh, that's cool.
actually it came out in 2002, so I guess that was a bit ago. I just finished reading for the second or third time "Travels with Charlie" by John Steinbeck. Also just finished by I think it's pronounced A.J. Bame or Bamey, "Go Like Hell," Ford, Ferrari, and the 24-Hour Le Mans, which is the book on which the
the
movie
movie.
Ford versus Ferrari was based, because I really liked the movie. Reread Paul Tillich's "The Courage to Be" after having a conversation with a guy in an airport bar over that book.
Wow.
And I was like, man, I haven't read that book for 25 years. I'm going to take a look at it. Like I have the freedom to read broadly, so I do that. I love novels. Just finished or in the process of finishing Craig Johnson's "The Cold Dish," which is a Longmire story.
Okay.
Walter Longmire from TV series. Have you seen that?
You read novels?
I do, man.
He does, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
And then on Adam's recommendation, I am almost done with "The Madness of Crowds" by Douglas
I read that book.
Murray.
That's a good book.
Wow.
I got a couple of
Yeah,
You
the
guys are
subtitle is what is it? Race and Gender and Identity Politics or
yeah.
something like that.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
He does a lot of the facts, I'd say. He's sort of
yeah.
a fact reporter or a data reporter on some of this.
Well, I am almost finished with Jonah Goldberg's "The Suicide of the West,"
Oh, I just read that too, not too long ago.
which is great. I actually got 3/4 of the way through it while we were in Norway. And then after the last plane landed home, I sort of like closed. I've been reading on my iPad, and then I got home and I sort of forgot about it. And then I was on my computer the other day and I saw it in my Kindle list. And I was like, oh, I need to finish it. So I'm finishing that. I read volume 1 of Stephen Paulson's Luther's Outlaw God, which was good and is actually causes you to pause a lot of times. I would say it's a very academic book, so it requires some pre-reading to understand. Like I think you'd have to. I think you'd have to have a pretty good.
It's a 3-volume sort of tome
Yeah.
on systematic theology, so
Yeah.
it's intended to be high level. I will read that this year.
It's good. It deals with lots of
two volumes are out now.
2 volumes are out. I just ordered volume 2 as I finished volume 1. In the midst of that also caused me to go back and read Kolb's Balanced Choice Selection and Wittenberg Theological Method,
Wittenberg Way.
which is great. And I had actually reread the final chapter of that when my dad and I were writing the friendship between Luther and Melanchthon.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Chapter 2, because the final chapter deals with the differences between Melanchthon's method and Luther's method, and how that defines
That's
as
the
a
book
whole
where,
Wittenberg's method.
Kolb originally describes Melanchthon as a theological ambassador for the gospel.
Yeah. Yep. And so I reread that after reading Paulson's book, and I have volume 2 on order. I don't want to throw a wrench in anybody's thing, but I finally noticed as I was rereading the Augsburg Confession and the Apology to the Augsburg Confession, when you read the Kolb-Wenger edition, which includes both the German and the Latin of the Augsburg Confession, that there are some translation differences between some words. And so I've wanted to look at that, why there are differences between the Latin and the German there. And so I ordered the Bekentenschrift
which we have on the shelf in here.
Oh, well, great. Well, I ordered the new one,
And I have the shelf at home, too.
which I'm sure that
It's not the new one, though.
I'm sure the new one doesn't have that many. I know it's not that many
Yeah.
differences. It's just it's manuscript updates for the most part.
So for people that don't know what the heck the manuscript is, why don't you...
The Book of Concord.
Yeah, it's basically the Book of Concord.
In German and Latin.
In German and Latin, sort of what's called a critical edition.
It includes the most up-to-date scholarship on what manuscripts are the closest to the originals. And so I now got what is the newest edition, which is from 2014. And I'm going to be reading, my goal is to read the Augsburg Confession in Latin. I don't really know German that well, so I'm going to hopefully get some assistance there and look at, first off, just read it, and then second, look at those differences that I've noticed between the German and the English translations, see what's there. And then I'm just going to have it on the shelf for reference and reading. It's actually a way I'm going to help. I have to find things to read in Latin to make sure I'm not like getting lazy with it. And I feel like the Augsburg Confession and the Apology are great ways to do that. So that's one of the things I've been reading lately. And then I've just been reading things for my MA, which is probably irrelevant to most people, but
Not to us, please go on.
yeah.
We're so excited.
So I've been reading Catherine Pickstock, who's at Cambridge's book called Repetition and Identity, which has to do with the relationship between literature and theology. There's a book by John Milbank, who sort of was the founder of my program at the University of Nottingham called The Future of Love, which is a collection of his essays that were published in various other places, but includes sort of explorations on how the humanities should engage in modern academy and things like that. Again, my thesis is on the relationship between literature and theology, so I'm trying to get up to date on modern publications on that, which probably does not interest the normal Thinking Fellows reader.
No, me and Adam have moved on to looking at trucks on our phone.
So, and if you want more down to earth things on this, look at like Tolkien's on fairy stories. Still,
Yeah, that's available on the old interwebs.
yeah, and just as relevant as any of this sort of modern stuff. So. Cool. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Hey, Happy New Year. Thank you for listening to the Thank You Fellows in 2019. Thank you for supporting the show. Hey, this is the last day of the year to possibly give towards the Thank You Fellows in 15-17 and our year-end campaign for 2019. And it really helps us start off 2020 strong. There's this balance between being very grateful and I can't emphasize this enough, very grateful for the donations that we have received in 2020 to not only continue doing what we do here on the Thinking Fellows, being able to enjoy these great conversations, being able to share these conversations with you, and the reality that doesn't end when the new calendar starts for us, and that sort of we will have a financial need to be met by the end of 2020 as well. And so if you are a donor to 15-17 or the Thank You Fellows, if you have been considering supporting us, now is a great time to set up a affordable, reoccurring donation to the show and to 15-17. Go 1517.org/donate, and there you can set up, whatever you can afford that would support the ongoing efforts that we have here. Things like the Thinking Fellows, things like the 15-17 Academy, the publishing house. As you heard, many of us are working on future publications that'll come out through 15-17 and things like that. And that support makes all of this possible. So again, thank you for supporting us if you are a supporter. And I do encourage you, if you are a long-time listener or a short-time listener who has benefited from this program, for considering to support us right now at the very end of 2019 and ongoing in 2020. All right, thank you for listening to this episode.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.